technical skills, soft skills, leadership, mentoring. I'm sure by now you've got the idea that STEMaway is a skills-based platform. But let's roll back a little over there. To be truly successful in what you're doing, you need to love what you're doing. So when I started STEMaway, it is from that step, it is about the beauty that is there in STEM. So even there's the beauty and there's the potential. To tap into the potential, you need the skills. But in order to be really successful, and when I say successful, I include happiness in that successful fulfillment, you need to love what you're doing. So when I say I love STEM, obviously STEM is a very huge field. I'm not saying that each one of you will fall in love with every aspect of STEM. It's not possible. When people say I hate math, it really means nothing. Math is such a huge field. What does it mean that they hate math? And even if I say I love math, it again means nothing. So the part that I particularly love in STEM is kind of best way to describe it is data patterns. You give me like a series of zeros and ones, I am happy working with that day in, day out, months. It's roughly, if you wanted to put a name to it, what I did was I straddled across several areas, but what I would say is kind of applied math in computer engineering. That was what I was working on. So my love with all of this started in college when I came across something which is called a linear feedback shift register. It's a very simple piece of hardware. What it does is it generates a pseudo-random sequence. So for the math people, that part of it is a truth for them. They know that if you use a primitive polynomial and you do the implementation in a particular way, you get the sequence of numbers, which is pseudo-random. For me, I'm coming from a hardware background. I'm a designer, I'm an engineer, and with a love for math. So I was really curious, how can this very simple structure, and I'm really talking about, for people who know a bit of hardware, it's like 5 or 6 gates. How does that generate such a powerful thing, which is that the numbers it is generating is pseudo-random? Because pseudo-random in terms of math is a very powerful concept. It has to really do many, many things. So I really spent hours, days, months, just moving around those little gates here and there to see what is the effect. I wanted to, obviously every time I go in these wild dreams as well, I wanted to see if by moving a little gate here, I could make I could actually find something which, is a fundamental thing. Obviously that didn't happen. There is no way, that is a fundamental truth. There is no exception to that. Those are people only amateur mathematicians like myself, like we even think about it. True mathematicians don't even think in that way. But because I really fiddled with these gates, I understood that structure to the extreme detail. So now fast forwarding like a million years, I'm now at Intel. And there is a problem that Intel is facing. It's at Intel, part of what I was doing is, you're all on your laptops or some device, right? There is a huge memory in it. Protecting the data in that memory is a big deal. So all the patterns that I have is based on how to protect the data. And there's a mathematical algorithms that we use to protect the data. So there was a problem where there are standard codes where, they're always named after the people who came up with them because they are so fundamental in nature. And there was an issue that you could not use the standard codes because we had there were not enough bits in memory to really put in the code. So because I had fiddled with all of those gates long back, my view of the code was not the mathematical view. I kind of knew exactly what it is a sea of gates. Each gate in that particular circuit is speaking to me. I know what their role is. For me, it's not just a representation of a mathematical formula. So when I heard about the problem, and some people knew that I was into all of this, and so they dragged me into it, although I was not part of that team, is I knew how to work, move these gates around so that I could meet the needs for Intel. And it's not just because I had this passion, but by now I had spent around 20 years in tech, so I really understood the hardware part of it. You can't do anything. As I said, these are mathematical truths, right? So the moment I move something, there is a compromise being made. And what I really, where my power was that I knew how to move those gates, or I really loved moving those gates to see different patterns, but I also knew the whole big picture. So I knew what compromises were possible and not possible. So with this two together is how I came up with a lot of the patterns that I did at Intel. And at any time I can have, if somebody is interested more to hear about this, it doesn't relate to any of your particular pathways, is if you want, I can set up an office hour where I can go through one of my patterns and explain in kind of layman terms what it is, like in terms of impact and in terms of what the technical content is. Because I will, when I'm talking especially about FS, I'll talk about this, the concept of impact of your work and versus the complexity of your work, all right? So here I'm at Intel. Obviously, I'm enjoying my job. You can see that from the way I talk about it, right? I had awesome colleagues, but there were a number of things that I was seeing which kind of bothered me, and some problems that I was already thinking, okay, we can solve it in a particular way. So one is student recruitment. When students submit their resumes, when I look at these resumes, they look, how should I put it, mind-numbingly alike because you don't have experience. So Melissa, you had asked a question in the Git webinar that should I include only my final achievements, or should I also show my learning? And Colin had a really good answer where he explained a little bit of both. And then I jumped in and said that Colin is young, I am old, so I'm going to give you a slightly different answer to that question. When people are hiring, know that they're seeing 1 million resumes, and they've been seeing 1 million resumes for years. There has to be something exciting in your resume to attract their attention. Once you attract their attention, then you can go into the depth of all that you have achieved. Then it is very interesting for me that you took a learning path to reach where you reached. But even though I'm a nerd at heart, I don't have the time to go through all of these resumes to see that you went through that path. And that is what we are doing in STEM-Away. One of the fundamental principles that I came in with was with the idea that we kind of document your learning for you and also have a way of showcasing so that companies can kind of figure out where they want to look. And then they have a very easy way to see exactly what your learning path was. So this was there. There is obviously, you can see I'm a woman in STEM at the higher levels in the technical world. There are very few women. So once I became a principal engineer, you can literally, count the number of women principal engineers at Intel. Lots of issues, but one of the things I was thinking is there has to be a way that instead of keeping on saying, look for mentors, which is obviously a very good solution, you need to get an early start on mentoring, because that is the only way that you can start building your leadership skills. So yes, find your mentors, but I wanted to really create this framework where you can grow your leadership skills as well. And even if you're a participant, there is plenty of scope for that. First of all, because this is an ongoing program, so you can come back as a lead. But even within your teams, know that it's not a static structure. So as the project progresses, there will be some natural leaders who are coming up. And at that time, the project leads will notice that, and they will make you the task leads or the technical leads. So even within a session, it is not static. Everything is dynamic in it. So all of this, the need for a way for students to really showcase their achievements, a way for them to pick up all the soft skills that are necessary, a way for enhancing your leadership skills, and at the same time be working on your technical skills. Many issues I was thinking of, and the only thing that kept coming into my brain was mentor chains. So with that, many of these issues we attack simultaneously, and that is kind of where STEM-Away came in. So I left Intel, not because I had any issues with my job. I still have a very good relationship with everyone there, but because I really wanted to do this. And now in the world of tech, I'm an expert. People look at me in a different way. I have worked my way up there, but in the world of entrepreneurship, I am a first timer. I went around talking to people, and what do you think is the main response that people gave? It's a cliche. It's kind of a cliche, but it also is very apt for this. which is ideas are a dime a dozen. I kind of got bored of hearing that, but it means a lot. It is, I mean, of course, it was frustrating because I knew that I wanted to do this, but when people look at me, they're looking at my career, then they're thinking, why should I put in my time to help? Because most probably she's going to go back to Intel like in 6 months or so. So that is one reason. Another reason is they're really busy and still don't have anything concrete to show. So pretty much, they're hiding behind ideas are a dime a dozen, which basically they're telling me, come back when you have something. Okay, so if that is what is necessary, I decided that I would do it. So finished with applied math, finished with computer hardware design, nothing of which helps me build STEM away. I picked up skills in full stack. I picked up skills in UX. I picked up skills in machine learning. And now you can kind of see where I'm going, right? Why these 3 initial pathways that you see. Because I myself have gone through these pathways in the last year and a half. And therefore it was, I could really visualize a project where you could do, first of all, I wanted to create something where you work on all aspects. So you're really defining the project. These are not academic projects. So full stack doesn't immediately start coding. They're thinking about what is the impact of their work. They're thinking about how to distribute their work, so on. So for me, because of the experience I had in building STEM Away, so the site that you see now, it's mainly built using an open source software called Discourse. Many of you know that by now. On top of that, I pretty much built up some functionalities. And there is some machine learning that is kind of seated in the background already. That particular learning that I did really helped me define these particular pathways. And also because STEM Away is really the sum of these 3 pathways at this time, the showcasing became very easy for me to see. So let's talk a little bit about examples so that you can better understand what I'm saying when I'm covering it at a higher level. Let's talk about UX. So the moment I said that I picked up machine learning full stack UX, some of you might be thinking, really, did she say UX? Because I know that you have been struggling, right? When you first came onto the platform. I learned enough UX to know that UX is absent there. And if you're interested in the entrepreneurship side of it, you'll see that you have to launch at some time. And so you have to make the decision. You have to be brave enough to launch without having everything in. Because in some sense, STEM Away is my baby, right? I want to really make sure she looks like perfect before she goes out in the world. And that I'm part of a group called Founders Network. Every founder has this particular issue. When do we launch? It's not an easy thing to just go and launch out there. So the first thing you do is you think about functionality. And all of you, I know that none of you had issues with your basic user creation, the count, and all of those activities. That's because it's coming from Discourse, and that functionality is really, really solid. So what are some of the UX teams working on? I don't see Jay here, but I just want to briefly mention one thing that Jay's team is working on, which is having a different user interface for like beginners versus a different interface for experts. And when he was explaining this, I started laughing a little bit because that's exactly what is on STEM Away's roadmap next, which is, and full stack will come in a second, I'll talk about what they're doing, is to create a plugin where, when you come onto a platform like this, if you're a user and you have not logged in, you're essentially tagged a guest, there's a way to know that. So we could show them like some very basic categories. Still working off the Discourse database. That is one thing I've fully decided. This is a beauty of an open source code. Everything we will build will be on top of that. So we still have the same thing, but when you're coming in as a user, you have a particular, as a new user, or if you have not logged in, even if you're a returning user, if you have not logged in, the system thinks you're a new user. You see this particular interface. And for returning users, there is a different interface. And the other question that Jay asked was, he has really been browsing the platform and he found the static pages. At some time I had designed static pages for new users, and right now I've pushed it deep into a category where some of you have stumbled upon it. I know, Melissa, you have, because you asked me some questions about it. So he was saying, why are you asking us to do this if you've already done it? Or not that way. He was asking, he was really surprised to see that all of it is already there. And what I explained to him is that is my initial shot at it. These static pages are pretty easy to redesign, but what is happening at the back end, which is once you actually type in something, it is going and getting stored somewhere, some actions are happening based on that. All of that core functionality is really like 90% of the code, and that is very difficult to change. So I had initially started coding myself. I realized that this, even though I have kind of picked up FS skills, I picked up enough FS skills to know I cannot code that that backend by myself. And so I went searching for solutions, and then came across Discourse, fell in love with it. And that is how you see what you see in STEMaway. So the work they are doing is this UX work, it is on our roadmap, but the beauty of it now is when we do those changes, we are going to look at the work the Jay's team is doing. And we may not bring in every aspect of what they have come up with, but we will bring up some aspects. And when we do include something, that entire team will be tagged as an author of that particular feature. So that's the showcasing that one of the, as I said, one of the reasons why I picked these three particular pathways is I know these, I'm a new learner of all of this, and I have definitely crossed beginner, maybe even intermediate stages, and enough expertise to know what I can and cannot do, which is really what all of you should aim for in a particular field. Now, given the fact that Jay's team is working on this, what we'll do is take some aspects of it and put it on our platform, which is like very good showcasing. So let's talk now a little bit about industry truths. First industry truth. The likes and dislikes of your manager, you can call it whims, you can call it weirdness, whatever you want to call it, matters. So the reason I want you to understand this industry truths is, when I started out, I see many people started out, when they're starting out, you have this dream, and when you come, you clash with some of these quote unquote industry truths. And it really takes your kind of motivation away for some time and all of that. But if you're aware of these to begin with, these are not hurdles. That's why I don't call it industry hurdles. I just call it industry truths. There's lots of way around it. You just need to be aware of it. So for STEMaway, I am kind of the manager, right? So let's say my choices, my whatever drives me does matter in what I pick up from the UX team and the FS team. So what I like is a little bit of mystery. Right now, you see that there is total chaos on when you reach STEMaway. It is chaotic. I totally agree with that. It is chaotic. But you go a few steps down, and then it is really beautiful. You see like how people are finding their way, how like these teams are forming, how people are collaborating in different ways. On my screen, I'm seeing Melissa, Sarah, and Rinda, so I'm going to, and Anka. So I'm going to be using you as some of the examples. You can see how Melissa stepped up and helped some of the other people get started. Sarah and Rinda did the same too. So all of this is there. It's like really something beautiful. And what I want to do is reduce this chaos, but not reduce it to the extent that the whole mystery goes away. I don't want you, when you return for your next sessions, I still want you to hesitate. We are going to add new projects. We are going to add new dimensions. When you are looking at STEMaway, I want every user to hesitate for just a second and really kind of drink in what is in front of them. I'll talk about an incident that happened to me and really left an impression. I was doing this hike in Maui, I believe. You know, there are sometimes these pools, I think it's called the Seven Seas, where the water goes and it joins the ocean. And there are these rocks, you can stand on them, and people are jumping in all the time, right? Not very high rocks. I don't do high adrenaline stuff, just mild ones. But even for this medium-sized rock, when I went and stood there, I know it is safe because I am seeing people jumping in front of me, and everybody is coming out. So that's a reasonable degree of sureness. I know it is safe. But the water is so dark, you can't really see. You don't really know. I've never done this before. That is the feeling I want to recreate in some sense when you come in, is that you want to take the plunge, but you're also not quite sure, you need to look around. So I don't want one of you, so let's say you've started on machine learning, to be permanently on the machine learning track and just keep doing things there. I do want people to look around to see all the beauty that is there. And even if the navigation is difficult, uh, take the time to understand the navigation, because ultimately the choice is yours. You have to figure out what you want to do and what path you want to follow. But again, when I'm redesigning the UX, this is my personal choice. And so when I was speaking to the UX leads yesterday, I didn't tell them that in the beginning in case some of them dropped out. But yesterday, we are all friends now. I've really gone to, I'm at a point where I know all the leads really well, and I'm really excited to be working with all of you. It's not just a pleasure to work with you, it's really an honor to work with you, because you're doing such an awesome job. Without the leads, really, we could not have done this program, because they're the critical link in the mentor chain. So.
Debaleena, I hate to interrupt you now, but we're at the halfway mark.
Thank you, Sarah. So what I will do is, now that I know that I've already reached halfway without covering any of the pathways, I will take, Sarah, one more thing for you. 10 more minutes. By 10:40, I will wrap up, and then I'll address questions. Thank you, sir. So, in fact, since Sarah is right here, let's talk about another thing that the UX team is doing, what Sarah's team is doing and Brinda's team is doing. And it's interesting that both UX and FS came up with the same problem. If you're, you must have seen that when you reply to a post, it also gets added at the bottom and is kind of confusing. If you haven't seen it, you haven't been on the forum enough, believe me, because the more I use Discourse, I love it more and more, but this is the one thing that it definitely bothers me. And when they are thinking of the solution, what I wanted to explain to them was the concept of doing a little bit of change with a whole lot of impact. So there are a lot of Discourse communities. So when you are learning this forum, know that it is very useful for you, because there are like 300, 400. The ML team can, someone from the ML team can tell me what is the number, but there are many, many communities out there using Discourse as their base. Amazon sellers, card talks. But why it is interesting for you is because there are many scientific communities which are using this forum. And I strongly encourage you to figure out which of the scientific open communities in your particular pathway. We'll try to give you some indications in your forums as well. And just become a member there. Now that you know how to use STEMaway, you'll see you can use any of these scientific communities because they're using the same code base. So only thing is that reply, right? So these are active communities. If Sarah's group and Brinda's group came up with a solution which is really, really cool, but it is a kind of a big change. Even though the current solution sucks, even though everybody is cribbing that the solution sucks, they will say, awesome solution, they'll give you a pat at the back, but nobody will incorporate your solution into their product. So that is where anything that you do, there will come a time in your lives when you can do revolutionary work, but you have to work towards it. Like at the end, just before I left Intel, like the last 4 or 5 years, I did do revolutionary work, but I did a lot of incremental work in order to reach there. And industry is about incremental work. So in that reply, for example, the leads came up with the solution themselves. I'm just guiding. So for each team, I'm going to come and give you a little guidance, but really the leads are coming up with the solution. For example, I'll talk about the solution that was mentioned, which is very powerful. Instead of moving all the replies and really changing the order and things like that, first of all, it's a big implementation change, which means implementation, you guys are great coders and you can implement it. You cannot test it. Testing is not easy. Testing needs an army. That's one thing that you need to know. And the other thing is the users, they don't want to see this massive change, but if a simple change like just giving, that's what the leads came up with, is color shade to the reply button, so that you kind of know that this one is actually not a regular post in this conversation. It is more of, it's a reply. Some other ideas they had, I don't want to go into the full depths of it, but I want to share with everyone, because this is applicable whichever pathway you're coming from. When you come into industry, this is another industry truth. you come in with, you see posts out there, they say that I've completely redesigned the LinkedIn page, I have put it out there on social media, but nobody is paying any attention to me. You won't find many posts that say, I had this idea about this small change which will have a whole lot of impact, because these people have already been taken up by these companies. So I want you to fully understand this concept that there is revolutionary change, and there is revolutionary change happening. But in order to reach there, you have to be open to the incremental change. So when you start out, keep that in mind. Everything that you're doing, think in terms of impact. I was doing a whole lot of work, like very complex work, and then I wrote a simple script which kind of automated a mathematical function. And believe it or not, even hardware engineers don't like math that much. This simple script made everyone at Sun, like my whole entire group, not just my immediate group, but my whole super group, come to know who I was. So think in terms of that. Think in terms of what your impact is. Anything you're doing, whether it is machine learning, whether it is bioinformatics or the FS and UX that we touched today, I don't really have time to touch the other two. Think in terms of impact, and think in terms of the fact that if you do something which is a huge change, people may tell you that you did awesome work, you did all of that, but nobody will adopt your work. Everything in industry is incremental. There is this one word that people hate, which is legacy. So when we come up with very interesting ideas at Intel, you would still have to make sure that you are not affecting legacy. It's as simple as that. And it's not just an Intel. I've been in many companies, a bit of a hopper. So this is a universal truth. So since we're almost up, I just want to touch on bioinformatics once, because that's the one project where I kind of messed up in the project definition. I think I wanted to make it technically challenging for every pathway, but may have just overdone it in bioinformatics. My idea was that initially we would start out with some basic exercises, and then that would give us an idea about the different levels of experience, and then we could really go and cover quite a few things that I had in mind, which was, it needed to be more concrete than that. So the leads gave me all the feedback, which really helped me redefine. We restructured on the fly, and thank you to the entire team. You guys have been really patient and really very cooperative in all of the changes. That's why we could make it possible. I have also pulled in more mentors at this time because of these changes, just to make sure that you now get the start that you deserved in the beginning. And we have replanned it in a slightly different way. So now you will start with one pipeline. Everybody starts on the same pipeline. But at the end of, the leads are going to decide based on how people are doing, but roughly at the end of 3 weeks, you then break up into natural groups where you define your own pipelines. So people who are starting out, and there's a real breadth of experience in bioinformatics, they will recreate the pipeline that they've already been training on, just on their own. But for people who are more advanced or who have really done a whole lot of studying in this first 3 weeks on their own, they will create their own pipelines. And at the end, we will kind of compare everything. So even the people who are recreating the pipeline have a very significant role in the project, because what we're going to see is what is the additional information that is coming out of these more complex pipelines, and then do the analysis that way. So everyone is involved again at the end. So in the beginning, instead of diverging right now, we will all continue along the same path, then diverge, and then have enough time to compare and make some analysis. So since there are quite a few of names I recognize here from bioinformatics, I just wanted to briefly cover that. And now, Sarah, you're done. I am stopped talking. Thank you so much. I know it's not easy to interrupt.
You did it in less than the 10 minutes, so you're doing well.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so let me go over the questions.
So I actually was just responding to, you said that if people are interested to hear more about your data sets from Intel, that you might do an extra call or office hours. And I was just saying how I'd be interested in attending.
I see. Okay, noted. I'll definitely do that. If there are other people interested on this call, you can drop in definitely. So I'll have one office hour where I'll just pick one of the patterns and go over what it means. And These ones, the language is from lawyers. So if you read it, it's all public. You will not understand anything. But you know what? Even I don't understand. Once I give my ideas to the lawyer and they kind of rehash it in lawyer terms because they want to make sure every claim is protected, it just is a totally different language. But what I'll do is also explain how some of the ideas came into my mind, because that is the really interesting part. It's not all from technical things. So a simple thing like we had, I was mentioning that not enough bits, right? In very short, obviously I can't go into the whole depths of what it is about, but there was not enough space in memory to put in the solution that we were looking for. And I was driving to work. There is this, in Bay Area, I live in Bay Area, traffic is horrible. And the traffic is usually in one direction. So it is horrible in one direction when people are going to work. So most people live in one place, work in another. And it's horrible in the other direction when people are returning. So what this particular town had done is you also have this concept of a center lane where, if people are looking to turn or something, that is, they use the center lane. What this town did was they used the center lanes in office hours going into work. They turned it into, they just removed the center lane totally and made it into a lane going in the direction to the office. And on the other side, what happened was they did the reverse. So in terms of now coming to Intel and hardware, it looks like such a different problem, right? But it's the same solution that I used. Essentially what they're saying is, let's have a common resource and allocate it to the person who needs it at which time. So as long as the need is in two different times, and we can kind of live with the compromise. Remember, I said everything comes with a compromise. Over here, we remove the center lane, meaning if someone wants to go turn, they're really holding up the traffic behind them. But you know what? Very few people are turning because they're all going, there's the fixed office area and everybody's going straight. So that's the kind of compromise I was talking about. So what I can do in this, this other one, the talk, is I will start with a answer like this so that you can kind of know where I'm starting from, which is also very interesting because you're going to be working in different areas. I just want you to know that you're capable of coming up with innovation, and sharing my story is one way of doing that. Everybody's unique. You have your own ways. And then I'll go into a little more depth. So I'll have you as timer again, Sarah, in there, because once I talk ECC, which is what I worked on, believe me, I don't stop.
My pleasure.
All right. Let's see. What's the next question? Melissa, go ahead.
So I wanted to know, what are your plans for fall mentorships? Like I don't have, there's a bunch of classes that I'm trying to transfer in for July, but I know that the observers have a little less of a time commitment. So could we sign up to be an observer for July if we're interested? And then also, what are your plans for the fall mentorships?
Okay, but you skipped your line. I was looking at just the comment where.
Oh no, I was saying, that was a response.
I'm kidding, Melissa. I'm kidding. I just saw the next, and over there you were just saying thank you. With the work you do, you've done the amount of help you've given STEMaway, you can skip the line every time. You're most welcome to. But I was just kidding about that. So the question about, yes, the pressure is lower on observers because you are not being assigned a task. You're really following along and doing the task as in how much ever your time permits. Fall internship, this is a personal thing. I need a break. So it's not just for my family, but it's also the startup has some, there are, even though I put the entire roadmap on hold, there are still some things that need to be done. So I'm hoping that we will start it soon, but I need at least a month's break. So, one of the things that, this is totally a segue, but I am the kind of the highest executive here, but I'm also the lowest admin in STEMaway. And I did that for one of the reasons why I did that is a kind of a learning. And it was not surprising, but it was a bit sad to see that when people respond, when they're responding to me, they're all polite. But when people respond to one of those million other emails I use, which is all still me, there is the tone changes. So let me say, like, for all of you who are international participants, there is one guy you need to thank. His name is Carter. I'm quite sure it's Carter or something similar. So sorry, Carter, if I've messed up your name. He's going to be in ML the July session, and in the beginning I said no international participant, and he reached out to me and he said, "Look, I know that why you are saying that. I don't have any expectation that you'll do something extra for me, but I really want to participate. Just give me the chance." So after I gave him the chance, we opened it up more. And now, obviously, like, we are fully global except South America, every continent, of course, Antarctica too. But at the same time, I would also get emails saying, "Hey, what do you mean by this time zone? I cannot figure it out. I cannot understand, and I do not know what to do." The hey is never addressed directly to me. If they hey me, I'm not worried, because I have been in tech for 25 years. Believe me, I have a thick skin. People can hey me all they want, and it does not bother me one bit. The fact that bothers me is what I've seen in industry, and what this is one part that I really want to talk to you guys about. My dream about STEM Away is that there has to be compassion. STEM is an extremely competitive field, and I want you to, you can see that on the technical side, I'm really pushing you guys. I want you to be super, super competitive, but I also want you guys to learn compassion. And what you're seeing over there, the hate to what the person perceived as an admin, is the kind of behavior which leads to many other issues. So directly, we are not addressing inclusion in the sense that it's not an exclusive diversity initiative or anything like that. But I want you guys to, through the program, to really get the feel for this. When you're successful in your careers, and I know that each and every one of you will be, we will give you all the help additionally that you need. There will be people, administrative assistants helping you. There will be IT assistants helping you. Know that each one learn to respect each and every person. Most of you do. I'm very happy to say that because I deal with numbers, even though I'm not tracking, I can get a good feel for percentage. What I'm talking about is less than 5% of people. What I really want all of you to know is what drives me, why I left the job I really loved, is I do believe that compassion and competitiveness are not exclusive. So you can be extremely, extremely competitive, but does not mean that the compassion part gets does not fall on. So coming on to the next question, Ritika, if you love tech peppy talks, I'm happy to give them all day. Let me know like what you want to hear about.
And the research of it, the knowledge, the exposure that I'm getting, I just love the program. Like, really love it.
Thank you.
So thanks for that.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And as I said, when we started scaling, one thing that kind of bothered me was that I didn't get a chance to know all of you before you came in, but I will. And if some of you like what you call tech peppy kind of talks, I can give that day in and day night. I have 25 years of experience, and believe me, I have had almost any kind of experience that you can think of. I really know, like on the technical side, I have real skills with data patterns, but what I want to kind of cover is what I achieved at Intel. There was a long journey to reach that, and that is something that I can share with you. And to share what is, as I said in the beginning, ultimately it is about the love for STEM. So even, yes, we talk in terms of skills, but when I can really connect to anyone who says that is the beauty of STEM that you're looking for, because that is one thing that I can really talk to you about and share my love, hear your love for what you like, and then we can continue from there. And
Sure.
All right, thank you, Ritika. And talking about the other part of it, I want to make sure that one part that I love is STEM, and the other part I love is teaching, which may be apparent to some of you because I keep talking. So for me, even though I've been working 24/7 to make this happen, it's a pure pleasure for me. And what I love is you as individuals. So make sure if at any point you think that there is something we are saying which is making STEMaway a little robotic or a little cut-like, point it out to me, because that would be the end of the dream that I have for STEMaway. I really want you there to be as individuals. Working on your particular skills will help you hone those skills, will help you in every way, but remember that you are an individual. You are a beautiful person with your own personality. When we talk about communication skills, we're not saying that go and keep talking all the time. If you're an introvert, and believe it or not, I am what people label as introverts, which means I like the sound of silence. May seem like many of you might be thinking that, oh really? But yes, I this does not contradict the fact that I'm talking to all of you, because I also love working with students. And so I am an introvert, but I like talking with students. And when you're passionate about something, whether over here it is you guys for me, but in the world of tech, I was absolutely comfortable talking about the part that I worked on because I was really passionate about it. No issues with communication at all. So the passion has to be there, and there's little things which will help you communicate more effectively. And the reason why I encourage you to like ask questions, turn your videos on, you need to really be able to have the confidence to ask questions and so on. So as if there is anything that we say which makes you feel that we're directing you in a certain way rather than guiding you, whether in anything, in any aspect, do bring it to my attention. And I really want each one of you to be your individual self. We just want to be the kind of background for you, the safety net for you, but nothing more than that. We really want each and every one of you on the technical side, on the soft skill side. Everything we say is guidance. If you are helping us on LinkedIn, we definitely appreciate it. But again, that is, I want to make sure that, and at some times I pull my title because I'm also kind of protecting the company, is everything you do over there is voluntary, and what you say on LinkedIn, whether it's a positive experience, negative experience, it will not impact what is happening. LinkedIn or any social media, it will not impact what is happening on the platform. So I want to really stress this point. That is another thing which is very important for me, is I am not very typical of tech, the world of tech. Like there are some kind of more people who, a few things, they all have a certain characteristics which I didn't have. But that doesn't mean I didn't succeed. I have really succeeded. And I want each one of you to know that you don't need to change your personality to match your career. You need to make sure that you have the skills to succeed in your career, which is not the same as saying that you have to change to succeed in your career. There, it is like, may seem like a subtle difference, but it is a really big difference, which can make really the level of happiness that you get out of your career, it can affect that quite a bit. Sophia, I know you sent a private message to me, and you know what? Right after this meeting, let's talk, and let me just help you on a. Let's set up a. I'll send you like a Google Meet, and I'll help you address the problems that you wrote over there. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Sure, absolutely. You're welcome. And I know that one of the things that I'm also asking of everyone is to, if there are any account issues, to reach out to me rather than the leads, because at this time they really need to start focusing on the technical side more. The work that they did in the first week, it's really like in big companies, you have like a whole IT department setting up things like that. So your leads have done an amazing job. And for anyone who was interested in lead positions, the difference in lead positions and these positions is the leads, as you can very much see, are not just giving the 100%, they're giving the 200%. So if you want a lead position, know that the time commit, you cannot ask me the time commitment question. You've already seen it in action. And even for the time commitment question, coming back to it for participants, I want to just quote one of the, when all those introductions were going out, there was one response that I really loved. So the person wrote, I'm really interested to see what, I'm very excited about what we can do in this project and how I can help to make it happen. You can obviously see why I love that particular answer. So I think most people are leaving now, but I do have a little bit more time. If someone wants to ask a few more questions, just unmute. If anyone is more comfortable with me removing the recording at this time, I can do that. Why don't I do that? So, you know, whoever is remaining, you just turn your videos on and we can talk. Before I remove that recording, I see Shreyas is here, and I do want to say my thanks to him. There are times that I got tired and I was not very sure whether I could manage. And the entire G Suite organization was set up by Shreyas, which is no joke, believe me. And I kind of asked him for help. I didn't ask him to do the whole thing, but I had a meeting in the middle. And when I came back, everything was done. Well, not came back immediately, right? I'm looking at many things. So I do want to say thanks, Shreyas. It has been incredibly. That particular day, you really saved me, and I shall remember it.
Yep, it was really fun, actually. It was a great opportunity to learn.
There you go. And I don't know if Stephanie is still on the call, but I want to say that obviously Stephanie is awesome in many ways, right? But the time when she made this real impression on me was when I started looking at the applicants, and when I was looking at the machine learning, there came a time, just like the G Suite, there came a time when I was thinking, hey, maybe I cannot handle this. There came a time when I was looking at the ML participants, and she's a very senior person. She not only said that she would help, she simply rolled up her sleeves, got to work on the spreadsheet. As many of you know, she was a CFO in her prior life. She can work spreadsheet magic. She made everything happen.